In this video, I'm going to share the number one thing that projectors trip over again and again and again. I'll also share my experience with this challenge, how I figured out the problem, and what I'm doing to resolve it in my own life. If we haven't met before, hi, I'm Carolyn Southwell. I'm a 2/4 emotional projector, and I've been playing with human design for an entire decade. Wild, I know. In that time, I've learnt so many wonderful things, and I've done just about everything backwards for my design. I've made just about every mistake in the book, including the ones that nobody ever talks about. In fact, for the first few years, I was so embarrassed about how hard I found it to live my design as a projector that I was basically teaching generators and manifesting generators almost exclusively. When I finally felt ready to start teaching my fellow projectors, I was actually relieved because they were struggling with all the same things I had been struggling with, and waiting for the invitation was doing their head in as well. People didn't understand it. It felt so constricting and limiting for them, and there was so much misinformation about what this human design strategy actually means. As I lay the groundwork here to really hone in on the specific part that projectors find so difficult in our human design strategy, I need to jump in and say something very important and very controversial. There is a popular teaching in human design circles that the projector strategy, waiting for the invitation, only applies to waiting for the big four things. Now, if you've never heard this before, those big four are starting a new job or a business, entering a new relationship, usually it's in reference to like a romantic relationship, moving house, like moving to a new home, or going on holiday or vacation, as they say in North America. So those four. I now, having played with human design strategy as a projector, categorically disagree with this. Let me tell you why. For years, I tried following this advice, and I made so little progress in living my design. It was doing my head in. I felt like I was following all the rules, doing everything right, and still getting nowhere. It was only when I went, let's just put that on pause and really deeply experiment in my own life, and I started experimenting with waiting for a lot more things, then I started making some progress. I started practicing waiting for my friends to invite me to catch up. I started waiting for invites to events. I waited for invites to like go check out that cafe or this yoga class, or go and check out this neighborhood. And I started practicing waiting before offering advice or guidance or insights. I started doing something that projectors find so hard. I started waiting before I opened my mouth, and it changed everything. Now, before you click off this video, let me say, I am a projector with an undefined throat with 5 gate activations. Now, if you know what that means, you'll know what that means. But to translate, it means there is so much pressure on my throat and so many opportunities to speak. I know how hard this is. I know my body knows how hard this is, but I can tell you that having this practice of waiting before opening my mouth has radically transformed all of my relationships. Now, later in this video, I will talk about waiting to open your mouth before giving advice or offering guidance to family members. But what I have found is that family members can be our kryptonite. I've never found a projector that's found it easy to do this with their family. So let's look at some other kinds of relationships where learning how to waiting for the invitation, waiting for the right opportunity to speak can immensely improve other kinds of relationships. In my friendships, there were 3 main things that have shifted over the last decade that have really improved them. 1, I started to notice which of my friends just wanted my attention. They wanted my company, but they didn't really want me specifically. So what I found is that in these relationships, it was actually really quite unfulfilling. It wasn't nourishing, and it left me feeling depleted. So I did the brave thing. I loved them and I let them go. This led to the second shift. Letting those people go made space for new friendships where people really valued and loved and recognized me, like this human, they wanted me. And that is so much more nourishing in my friendships when people like all of the quirks and all of the weirdness and all of the individuality of me. And then the third shift that I made is noticing in these friendships, the ones that felt really nourishing, when did they want my guidance and when did they not? They're not clients, they're friends. So while my friends still sometimes ask for and appreciate my guidance, a lot of the time they just want to like hang out and eat together and play together because that's the basis of a friendship. So it's really noticing that difference of when they want my guidance and when they don't. And when they don't, then I just let them be and let them do them. Are you finding this video helpful? If you are, can you give it a thumbs up? That'll help more projectors find this video and benefit from the things that I'm sharing today. Thank you. Now let's look at waiting for the invitation in relation to professional relationships. Now I'm going to talk about this in the context of coaching clients because that's what I've been doing for the last decade. So that's what I know really well. But you can take this and apply it to any professional context where you are being paid to guide people. Now, quick side note. This being paid to guide people is the only kind of correct work for us as projectors. If you are being paid to do the work, to build the thing, then I want you to know that that's generator work. It is not sustainable for you as a projector and you're going to get burnt out. Now, if you'd like me to do another whole video, it's another whole topic all on its own. So if you'd like a video about the right kind of work for projectors, then let me know in the comments, yeah? So back to the example of coaching clients, which I know will apply to many of you watching this video because I know there are many coaches, wannabe coaches, consultants, etc. So let's talk about that. And the very first thing I had to do when I was applying Wait for the Invitation to my professional relationships is I had to change the way I was doing my marketing. In the beginning of my coaching journey, I was trying all of the things that people suggested, different marketing tips. Now, 2 examples that were a total waste of my time: offering free coaching, not honoring of the projector energy. And also another big one that I tried for a long time because I saw it was very, very successful for other people who, by the way, were mostly generators and manifesting generators, was going and responding to people's questions. So I would see that somebody had a challenge and it was in some sort of forum or a social media group, and they would say they had a problem, they were trying to solve it, and I could see how they could solve their problem. So I would go and answer their question or like offer a solution. And one of 2 things would happen. Either they'd be like, yeah, that was great, and they'd run off and do something with it with no sort of value or energy exchange for me. So I'd feel really bitter. Or they would ignore what I said and like look at the other suggestions that had been made that were often nowhere near as good as my suggestion. Other people would miss the point, right? So I was doing all of these things that people had taught me, and all of these things that people had said, yeah, this is the shortcut to building your coaching practice. And I was getting nowhere but bitter, burnt out, and staying totally broke. It didn't work. At some point in my experimenting, I worked out, hang on a second, what if I do this differently? Now, at that point in time, years and years ago, there were nowhere near as many online resources for projectors. So I was really figuring out a whole lot of stuff on my own. And what I did was I noticed in those online groups where I was still hanging out and trying to learn and grow, I would notice when somebody who I didn't know, who hadn't asked for my guidance, would ask a question that I knew I could help them with. And I would take their question in a general form and I would share my answer to that in a blog post or on a YouTube video. So the people like you who resonate with me, who like my videos long enough to be still watching at this point, could then go, oh, yes, okay, I see that problem and I see the way Carolyn answers it, and that really helps me to solve my own problem. That worked so much better. And I could do that slowly, sustainably over time and just notice, what advice would I have given this person? How would I have guided that person if they had asked for my advice? And of course they weren't, because they didn't know me. They hadn't invited me. So then I would just take that same guidance that I had to share with the world and put it in a place where somebody else, somebody like you, could opt in and go, yes, I want to hear from Carolyn. Yes, I want to learn from Carolyn. That worked so much better. And by having a system that was sustainable and enjoyable for me, it meant that I could slowly build up this body of work over time. And then people like you could go, oh, okay, I want to access her her newsletter. Oh, I wonder what her coaching options are. Oh, I want to check out her online courses, right? So it gave people an opportunity to opt in, to invite me and my guidance into their life. Now, by the way, if you're looking for any of the resources I mentioned in this video or any other video, you'll always find them in the video description. So have a click down there and you'll find all the things that I just mentioned. And because I created a sustainable system that was enjoyable for me to be able to take my guidance from inside of me and share it with an audience that could opt in, it means that now, years later, I have people, brave, curious people, every single day engaging with my work. But that would never have happened if I was still busy, like trying to help the people I thought I could help. If I was initiating in this conversation or I was responding to that comment, instead of waiting to see who wanted my help, it's a real shift of us being the person who goes, I can help, to being the person who holds our value and says, oh, let's see who picks me. It's a very different sort of flow, but the latter works so much better for us. Now, everything that I've just shared about the human design strategy for projectors, applying it to friendships, applying it to professional relationships, it also applies to interacting with strangers and the general public. So I want to encourage you to go out and have a play and see how you can apply that, see how you can experiment with that. But for now, let's talk about family, shall we? Family. Well, unlike with friendships, you're probably not just going to love them and let them go just because, they don't listen to you. That is, unless, of course, they are outright abusive and they show no signs of changing, in which case, please do love them and let them go, because nobody can live their design unless we feel safe to do so. So let's say your family is something like mine. They love you, they want what's best for you, they want you to be happy, and they have zero interest in human design. And when I say family, I mean the adults in your family. So that might be a partner, it might be your adult children, it might be siblings, it might be parents, it might be anybody from your extended family that you spend regular time with. But I'm not talking about your munchkins. So not your younger than adult children, because that's another topic entirely. So you have these adult family members in your life, and you, the wise, all-seeing, all-knowing projector, can see all the ways that they're tripping over themselves with all their misaligned actions. And far out do you want to help. Like you want them to thrive and succeed and live into their potential, but they don't ask you. They never ask you. And some days that feels deflating, and other days it feels just flat out frustrating. I get it. I've come to the conclusion that our family are our biggest teachers. Now, I know I'm not the first person on the planet to say that, but I am reminded of that every time that I do something with my family that I tell my clients not to do. It can be incredibly hard to watch our family members suffer through their own, not correct actions, doing the wrong things, when you can see exactly what they need to do to solve their own problem and they just won't listen to you. It's so frustrating, I know. But here's how I realized I had to stop offering advice to my family members. I would start to notice these 3 warning signs. 1, I would see some of my family members see, sense, or feel them brace against my suggestions as if they were getting ready to be attacked. The second thing I noticed is some of them would freeze. They would hold their breath like they were a frozen animal waiting for a threat to pass. And the third thing I would notice, different family members did different things depending on their personalities and how they were feeling on that day. But the third one that I was seeing a lot is they would deflect my suggestions. So either they would change the topic or they would just make a lighthearted sort of quick dismissal of it, like they were shooing away an annoying fly that they didn't want to kill. And while it was hard for me to watch those behaviors and to know what they meant, I realized, oh, that's what they're doing. They really, really don't want my guidance. And their body and their physiology and their tone of voice and their way that they're communicating to me is showing me that so clearly now that I know the warning signs to watch for. Now, because I've had the privilege of serving so many projectors, so often when I engage with somebody, I have their human design chart there. And I have witnessed again and again and again when projectors try to offer me guidance and I didn't ask for it and I don't want it. And I know physiologically how uncomfortable it feels in my body. So then when I started to see those warning signs from my family members, I was like, oh, I'm doing to my family what these other projectors are doing to me. And that's how it feels in their body when I do that. And while that was really confronting to notice, it made it easier for me to wait and not speak when I hadn't been asked. And when I say easier, what I actually mean is slightly less difficult. Let's be honest. Now, to be clear, I'm still human. I still sometimes mess this up. And in fact, I have still never met a projector anywhere in their human design journey who still doesn't trip up with family sometimes. It really is our kryptonite. We love them so much and we just want to help. But what I have found is that as I have got better and better at waiting for the invitation and keeping my mouth shut and just listening to my family talk about what's happening in their life without trying to guide them, without trying to change them, my relationships with my family have improved dramatically. And so you don't need to get it perfect either, but the more you can apply waiting for the invitation with your family, your relationships with them will improve. Yes, it is difficult watching family members in pain when you know that you could help them. Yes, it is incredibly frustrating when our family members don't realize how gifted we are at guiding other people. And yes, it is outright annoying, frustrating as hell when a family member takes advice from someone else that you gave them years ago. But what I remind my clients of all the time, and what I really want you to hear is this: if you have only two options, and your options are to try and guide them when they don't want it and piss them off endlessly, or not guide them and just love them and let them be, if they're your only options, if they're never ever going to hear you, but you can keep trying and pissing them off, or you can just bite your tongue and let them be, the second option is going to create much healthier relationships, much more loving relationships with your family members. So that's the number one thing that you need to get really, really good at as a projector. That is by far, I have found, the hardest thing to do in this projector life is to love them and let them be. And when it all gets too much, the frustration, the bitterness, the sadness from having to engage in this process with the people that you love, then use that energy that you want to use to guide people and bring that loving presence to your own precious heart instead. And be with the part of you that is feeling all the things when it gets too much. Now, if you don't know how to do that, I'll put a whole playlist here on trauma-informed tapping and how to, do that process with and for yourself with my guidance. See, if you're watching this video up to this point, you must like the way I guide. And if you found this video helpful, then consider if there's another projector who might benefit from this that you can share it with.